Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be streaming while I work, do some continued work on the auto tweeting service that we're setting up to use GitOps. Apologize, I did not have this scheduled out in advance, so I'm not sure if anyone will know to have enough notice to know to be able to join. Although if anyone happened to see this, you're welcome to join live, chime in. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and proceed just to review what it is that we're working on here. We've been working on creating some auto tweeting services. First, we started off with creating a manual tweeting service, which is and it could be useful for many projects. Over in our case, we've used that to do an initial way to make sure that we got our logic right for the tweeting service. And we have a workflow here that runs every time someone completes a course and requests a certificate of completion. Now, I'm going to start this just on one course initially to get this up and running, and subsequently we will work on uh, you know, some additional assets that I still need to create. For example, to test this, we need to be able to have a user be able to request this, workflow. And currently, once a user has already requested and received this, rerunning the same workflow by design doesn't trigger all the same actions. And so, in this, something we have to think about in the future. But currently, we are not. It's not our intent currently to design this such that if someone has already received their certificate of completion, that they can re just redo the same process. We'll work on making sure that that case is handled, but it's not as high of a priority. So for now, we're just going to work at the standard case. But to do that, we need to be able to run test users through it. And I have been kind of manually clearing out test users, so we may end up partway through the process here, creating some logic for removing a user from an enrollment from a particular course, so we can clean out a test user and then reattempt that test use case. And there's we might I don't know if we're gonna get there yet, but we really ideally need and should in every case always have a test script that would automate um, a user from going through a particular course. And that honestly, there should be no courses published without that. And we're very very resource strapped, and so we've made some shortcuts that we probably shouldn't, but we're very much in this mode of we're going to get to trying to get all the bases covered as soon as we're able. So and you might have some some features that we'd like to have not implemented in our first iterations here. So I'll go ahead and dive in here. So what I'm looking at now is I have one particular a course. I actually have a fork of this course running. And in this is where I'm going to test, getting this initial workflow running. And I've already started to build some scaffolding for us. So the first thing is this workflow already existed for us. So we've covered this in previous videos, where this will validate that the requestor has completed all of their course requirements, and then go ahead and provision their digital badge and update their member records and various different things. And so there's a lot of things in here. This is kind of a rush job, so you can see it's a really kind of long, ugly script. And we're going to come back and refactor things as we get the chance. But in the current moment, what we want to look at is that adding that tweeting service. Actually, I wonder if I have the wrong file open, because I don't see. May have been the a different. I have there are the same exact workflow files exist on number of different courses. And so it looks like I had that one open for some reason before, but that is not the one I was doing the tweeting service on. I think the one I was doing the tweeting service on was here, the course repository template. And so again, workflows are in this .github directory. And here I have, you can see a bunch of different workflows. our manual tweet. And where I'm going to look at now is I'd already started to update the request completion certificate for, I believe, one of these courses here. I think it was actually this one. So let's just scroll on down and make sure this is the right one. Actually, easier way to do this. I don't know if or maybe this wasn't it. So which one was it? I thought it was. Okay, so apparently it wasn't this one. Apologies, I thought I had this all ready to go before I started, but let's. If it wasn't here, I think it is in the Modern Apps Skills 101. I bet you this is it. Okay, in our workflow files, and let's just check this request completion certificate. And it does looks like this is hopefully the right one. Yes. So we can see here at the very last step here, this auto tweeting service is a very simple thing. We just give it the variables, have to make sure that we have set up our developer account in Twitter and gone through the well-known process to get our consumer keys and access tokens and such. I've already set those up in my GitHub secrets for this org. And so you can see here, I just passed in these environmental variables to the process with appropriate secrets. I set up this dependencies. I need to install NKF for tweet.sh to work. I install this or download this tweet.sh. It's just a script. And then we use the script to post a message. And so this is working nicely. The problem that we have, not really a problem, but the update we need to make is that I got into testing this and I didn't finish making the message very nice here. So it's a very raw message. Congratulations to, and this is to the GitHub username of the person who completed a course and is requesting the service. And congratulations to GitHub username for completing and I put the repository name for the course. And this is course navbar title is, and so as you can see, that message doesn't make any sense. I kind of was in a rush when I was just getting this initial test out with the intent that I'd come back here and update the message. And so let's go ahead and update this message now. So what we want the navbar title. So the navbar title is when you create a course, you can create a course title that is as long as you want. And then you also need to create a human or readable formatted title that will go inside the nav bar. That in the event you have a long course name, you want to make one that's shorter but still human readable and descriptive enough for your course. And so we'll use this nav bar title here to the course name. So for instead of completing the repository name, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to be like, hey, if they've completed the github.com/something something, we should expect to see a course name there. So let's take that and for completing the, I'll just get rid of the rest of that one here. Completing the now the one downside here is it's not ideal to use the person's GitHub sender login. It would be most ideal to use their Twitter handle, and it would, in the event that the Twitter handle wasn't available, it would probably be better to use the first and last name, or I don't know if it would be or not, or maybe to give users the option to maybe choose their preferred name for this purpose. But we don't have, we're far from being able to have have the service be capable to support that type of user choice for this specific activity. Um, and we have problems with our data integrity in general. One of the focuses of this program is to make sure that people can work inside of CI/CD, developer tools where things are generally very raw, where an end user will often go to some web service and to enter a form where they enter their data, and that nice form may have a bunch of input masks and validation strings to make sure that if it says email address or Twitter handle, that the user puts the right information in first before it'll even be accepted. But with developer tools, the developers and people who work on the operations team or whatever, we have to we're working on producing that level of polish, for end user consumption. But that is something you have to get to, and generally the systems that developers often work on, CI/CD systems, we don't have that type of input mask validation and so on in the systems. And so I'm trying to get people to get used to having to enter things correctly in a text format. But um, at least for what we have right now for our user registration, I don't think that's a very good idea, because the result is now that we don't have a good data integrity. So if I go and look at all across all the user records, how many people have actually entered their first name and last name properly, and in a way that they would want used in this manner, and that's inconsistent. And even worse is that the Twitter handles. So, well, we have pretty good coverage, I think, across our data sets right now for first and last name. The inputs of the Twitter handles have been highly inconsistent. So while it would be really ideal to first have the Twitter handle here, or to have some logic that does a little check to see, hey, is the Twitter handle there? Do a little sanity check to see if it at least looks like it's formatted in a way that makes sense, and if so, use the Twitter handle, and then possibly use the first or last name, and then if else, use the GitHub sender login. But in this case, for the time being, it really makes the most sense to use the GitHub sender login here, because this is the one truly consistent and truly valid piece of data we know we have, because we're not even basing this on what the user typed into their form. Or the GitHub Center login is based on their actual GitHub login data, because they have to be logged in and authenticated to GitHub to be able to trigger this workflow. And this Cinder login is the exact value from GitHub metadata of which is the logged in user that sent this workflow. So unless or until we get to a place where we have really strong data validation across, and I do intend to get there. I think we need to make some changes to make sure that we can experiment with a lot of things, but in terms of user registration for the overall community, that should be a more uh, uh, um, reliable process. But that's not the word I'm looking for. Just a sturdier process, if you will. And Yeah, and so, but anyways, for the time being, we're going to use the GitHub Sender login, and I won't worry about any conditional logic there, and into the title of the course. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and finish this up. So congratulations to the GitHub user. Or, another thing I could do as well is I could link to their GitHub account, because actually maybe I should do that. Because one of the challenges with only putting the login is if you know that this is somebody's GitHub login, then that you can look for that GitHub login. But since these are going out as tweets, unless somebody's already a member of the community, or already even those who are, if they don't have that awareness, they'll see that login, and a lot of these don't make any sense, and some of them might even be inappropriate. And that's actually another great point, right? If I just put their username and the username is possibly, you know, inappropriate, right? Which we want to avoid that in its entirety. But at least if we put github.com slash, and then that username, then people will know exactly what it is. People could click on it, and yeah. So let's just do it that way. Glad I thought about that out loud here. One nice things about being on the call is I talk things out, even though it's just me, but for the recording or what have you later, it's nice to be able to talk it out a little bit more, think about these things. So let me just do a sanity check here. Oops. So just make sure, pretty sure that the format is, I think in all cases, always github.com slash username. I don't know why my internet's being so slow right now. That's weird. Okay, so that worked great. And let's go back to VS Code. And let's see. Okay. So let's just go here and we'll say congratulations to. There we go. Now this will display a link, and we'll have to see. It's one of the interesting things about passing data via API to Twitter. I think Twitter is going to automatically recognize and hyperlink a URL. So since we're markdown or a different format, we'd have to put some formatting around that to make sure that when it displays as appropriately as a URL. But we'll do the best we can here with what we can do with the API, and we'll see how that works. Okay, for completing the blank course. And I don't want to. So what we want to do. So here I also want to say earning their digital badge and put a link to their digital badge. So on one hand, see, this is one of the downsides about not knowing what metadata, because what we can do, and I think that tweets are in rich text format or something. I don't know if it's tweet.sh if I could put rich, because what I would ideally like to do is have some text here that says for completing the blank course, and be able to have it such that it would display the name of the course as a hyperlink, and behind that hyperlink have hidden, but not actually display the full text of the hyperlink. And I don't know, how that works with Twitter, if there's a way to hide that, but nonetheless, yeah, that's an interesting question, because I don't want to just include the link. Maybe I should just include the link to the course. Okay, maybe we'll just do that. Maybe so now I have to think about, so I've got the course navbar title, and what did I have here before? They've got the repository name, and I need to think about if I want to provide a link to the course, what is that link? Because the way this needs to work is I need it to be able to gather the name of the link to the course from the metadata that's provided when the event triggers. So that way I can have one consistent script work across all my courses. So we can see some here, github.com, ModernApps Ninjas, and what do I want? I want github.com. What is it? No, I want ModernApps .ninja that's what I want to see. Do we have any of that in here? Just looking for somewhere in this script where it may have already created. Yeah, here we go. So, no, modernapps.ninja. So there is no modernapps.ninja URL here. So what we want to do is, and the link to the course is the same as the course what is that short title, I believe. That's a good question. So let's actually look in this our metadata for the course here to figure out what is the metadata value that we want to get. So we in each course in static, we have the course metadata file. And so it's under assets, static admin assets, and under course cards, we have our course meta file. Let's go ahead and look in our course meta file. And what is, so here we have the apply URL for the course. So we could grab the apply URL, and that looks like what we want. And so if we go back into the script, I'm going to go all the way down here to the bottom. And let's see, GitHub event repository.name. We want something else. And then we've got the send environment course navbar title. So I want to find out actually. So the course navbar title also, I believe, comes from that, the course meta file. So I want to see how we set this. So I'm just going to do a search for course navbar title in this file to find out exactly what we did when we set this. Okay, so we download our course meta file here, and we extract a couple, well, we do an in-place change of a couple values here with sed, and then we extract this course navbar title. And what I want to do here is I want to extract that other variable, that apply URL. So we'll go ahead here, and I'm going to copy that row, and then we'll paste it in, and we want to go call this course apply URL just to give it a little additional clarity. And we want to, let me just double verify the name here. Interesting. I just noticed here that the title that I'm setting as the course navbar title is the one here that's just called title. Oh wait, yeah, and I should be grabbing the course navbar title. So there was another error in my logic. So let me just show you what that is again real quick. Because notice here I say course navbar title, but then when I YQ the file, I'm looking for the value that is just the title value from here. And what I want to be grabbing is this course navbar title. So I will fix that while I'm in here. So we'll go ahead and we'll go delete that title reference. Oh, and that did not paste it in at all like I expected. What happened there? Oh, let me go back to my course meta. What did I actually copy? Did I copy more than I thought? No. I just want to copy just that title. And then try pasting it in. Yeah, it's trying to grab the entire value for some reason, not highlight the entire value. But, you know, and I look, obviously I could have just copied it because it is the same name, but I wanted to copy it from the source for, this just to be certain that I didn't, compound any errors since I had it right there. There wasn't any, but nonetheless, it's a good little hygiene practice to make sure that your the variable you're calling here is the exact name from the file you're calling it from. And we'll do the same thing here for our apply URL. And in this case, in the course meta, it's going to be maybe a little redundant to actually call course here. Even though I did that on these custom values. That's why in the in this request completion certificate here, where I'm bringing in variables from a lot of different locations into one common workflow. I want to add that course to the apply URL to make sure it's clear, when I look at that variable, that it is a variable having to do with the course. Okay. And so that's good. We'll save that. So now we have this new thing, course apply URL. Copy this variable name. Go back down to the bottom here. And this is going to be a little bit awkward in the sense that, oops, in the sense that, it may appear to be just a little bit odd, to see the URL there where the nature of the content makes it look like it should just be a title and you see a URL, but at least it'll get the point across. And, for tweets, we have to keep them short. I would like to have, my ideal scenario would be to have just a text appear and have the URL encoded in it, but I don't even know if that's possible to do at all. I'm trying to remember, or let alone through the API at all, or even if it can be done through the API, if that will work through the Twitter client that we're using. So I think, keeping it this way, it's functional. Okay, so we've got the users that received it, their GitHub profile page, and then for completing. Now, the other big downside here is one of these. So when you post a tweet manually, right, if your tweet has several URLs in it, it's going to, I think, pick the first URL and use that as that's an interesting point. I don't know if it's the first. Use that as the image that it presents in the tweet, because what we'd like to have happen, is that if the tweet has a URL in it, in general, what I expect to happen is that Twitter API is going to pick up, the one of the URLs from your tweet and do a fetch on that and use the image that's returned. I forget the exact value, but there's a web standard for a social media image to put in things like that, where you need to do like a little image that represents the URL. And so Twitter should automatically pick one of those up, and I believe the one it'll pick up is the first one. And I don't know if in the tweet.sh service there's any way to manually add a flag to indicate if there's a URL that you want the image or an image or what have you. So, that's an interesting thing. I should look and see, where is tweet? Where is tweet.sh? I have that downloaded somewhere, I think, but I don't know where. Where did I download it? Might be in cloned. Yeah, it's in clone. So let's just go, and I'm going to go to this tweet.sh folder and execute it real quick to see what the flags are. So I'm going to use my VS Code to right click the file name, copy the path, and I will, let's see, oops, change to that directory. No, let's just let's execute the thing with no flags, and hopefully it should just come up with some help here. Okay. Now we have our nice help menu. Let me see. Available commands. Fetch, blah, 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 watch, post. And it posts a new tweet, but it doesn't look like there's flags. I don't even know, if the API accepts things, and there may not even be a need for a flag. in the post to try to specify, or not a flag in the command that would include an additional piece of metadata that it would send to the API to specify the image or which URL you want it to follow, or if there's some inline formatting that could be done for that. So I'm just going to ignore that for right now. Well, or pretend like it doesn't exist. I'm going to work under the assumption right now that the first URL that is in the body of this tweet is the one that is going to so working under the assumption that the first URL in the tweet is the one that Twitter is going to pick up and use the image preview from, then it would be what the image I want to show up is the one from the badge that the user has earned. They've earned this badge. And I know the image from that shows the badge in the image. And ideally, when you have a tweet, if it does have an image that shows up, I mean, there's so much attention brought to that image. And so as this message is written right now, if the first URL I pass in is the GitHub Center login, it should just show a very, very random link to that user's GitHub page that won't indicate really any very much meaningful thing about what the context of this message. It's just general random stuff that user might have on their GitHub profile, which usually isn't optimized for people to land on like a LinkedIn page or something. Or really be relevant to anything that we're talking about in this message. And so how can we phrase this in a way that puts it puts the user's name first. So this is going to make it a little bit more awkward because it's just not natural in human language, I don't think, to do that or to phrase things that way. But it is what it is. So let's see. So what I want to see here is one thing we need the link to the Badger URL that where they validate their course completion. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we want to look in here and find the repository. So I send them, so we can see here that already in this message is after the people have made this request, they make a request to get their badge through the pull request. This step, as you see, I post a message saying, hey, your request has been completed. And I put the link to their grade report. I don't know if I send them a link directly to the badge because the grade report has a link to the badge in it. So one way or another, somewhere in this script, we have the link to the badge. Just I may have to look in the grade report. Or actually, is it the grade report? It is not the grade report. It is the member course record card, I think, that ends up getting the badge. And so just to validate where that is real quick, let's just take a look here. And let's go to my profile here, Modern Apps Ninjas. It's where I spelled something wrong here. Modern Apps Ninjas. Okay, and now we can go in here and content. Come on. English. And then we want to go, let's see, we want to go into certs because what happens is that your course record is in the course folder until you complete the course. Once the course is completed, it's moved to the certs to sign the ones you've completed. And so if I go here into any one of these, I should see here that the first value here is the open badge certificate URL. So let's just go ahead and go back into our script and let's look and see if we can find that. I see that, and then say, you see the here open badge URL is something cat temp badge ID, open badge ID, and I pass that into the grade report. So I got the open badge entity ID and the open badge URL. There's only 4 of these total variables. So let's see what the other 2 are. And the open badge certificate URL. Interesting. So I use a sed string to tie this together right here. So I put the open badge ID. This is a really interesting. Oh, I see. I see. The reason why it looks like it's twice is because I'm putting it into Markdown format, so it displays properly in Markdown. So with Markdown, you have to put the text you want to display inside of brackets, and then the link for that inside of parentheses. In this case, I want it to both show and display the URL. So that was confusing me for a second. Like, why is it? So interestingly enough, this is so apparently that doing cat temp badge open badge ID here is this is interesting. C completed. So this is the course record card. So I'm kind of curious. I have to look at this course record card to see if this value is the entire URL, or if this value, yeah, this value would have to be, because I'm saying I want the text instead to be whatever goes after this right here to say open badge certificate URL post, and then just this. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Whatever I have put into cat temp badge open badge ID here, this must be the full URL to the open badge at this point, and not just the entity ID. So apparently that's the difference. I called one of them the entity ID and one of the ID, open badge ID, when this would be more accurately called the URL. But is what it is. That is apparently what I called it when I made it. So that's what it's called for now until we refactor this. So I should be able to do, this same thing here with cat, because the temp should still be the same. And I could also try to extract it right here and make it a global environmental variable for the or job level. But I think this syntax here to use cat to display it, gets the job done here. Hopefully it will get the job done for us in the auto tweet feature here at the bottom. So let's just do that, because this is the one I want to show up first. Okay, so in the message, so how do I do this? I mean, should I just put the URL first and then say congratulations to so and so? I mean, that's one way to keep the message, like, it'll be a little awkward to have a URL as the very first, ahead of the text in the message. But I mean, we're not going to avoid, I don't think, without some ability to do something more robust with the metadata here, we're not going to avoid things being a little awkward about this. So I'm thinking, for a time being, at least for this, to get this off the ground, let's just put the URL first, and then that way, hopefully, um, the when the tweet goes out, it'll have the badge highlighted, and use that as the social media image that gets shown. And then it'll look a little awkward to start the tweet with the URL, but at the same time, the URL pass, and then you see this congratulations, and hopefully it should be okay after that. I mean, well, let's just do it, and then after we finish testing it, we can look and see how that looks. Okay, so congratulations, blah 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 blah, earning. Oh, there did. Um, okay, there we are. So now herein lies the other tricky part, right? So, and I don't think this matters so much for this because the tricky part is you have a maximum limit to the number of characters in the tweet, and when you're bringing in variables, you have to deal with that variable length, that unknown length, and what happens if your tweet is too long. So if we're pushing the limits on either of those things, um, we may need to include a shortener. That being said, I think for this message we can keep it short and sweet enough to where hopefully we can get away without needing to worry about that too much. Because the only variability we have to worry about here, the URL of the open badge URL should be pretty consistent. Unfortunately, URLs are longer than just words, and so that will take up some more space. Same thing with the Cinder login, should be straightforward, but because we have to include this whole prepend, that's adding to the text. And then, of course, your apply URL is going to be another fairly lengthy string. So now the question is this string as it is definitely nice, relatively short. So we should be very well in the safe zone. And then another question is how many hashtags or at mentions do we want to do? It's nice to be able to at mention and hashtag. You get some additional visibility that way. And so that's desirable. So let's go ahead and let's go log in to our Twitter account and let's look at what I've done here in the past. It's been a while since I've actually tweeted about someone passing a certificate because I've been meaning to get this auto service set up so I didn't have to manually do it anymore. But should be able to find that pretty easily here. So let's go to Twitter. Oh, gotta restart. Yay. I mean, I did just update Firefox a few minutes ago, but right before I started, but apparently can't do that too often or can't do that enough. Come on, Firefox. Oh, the joys of using Firefox. Maybe I should go with Chrome or something here. Oh, finally, back to life. Okay, so here we are back in Firefox, and let me go to Twitter. Yeah, I've noticed that it seems like whenever I'm recording, that the internet just is much slower. And I actually discovered recently for another different program that the OBS Web Server was really interfering very heavily with another program, and so I'm and if I had to guess, I haven't done the packet capture, but from what I noticed, like with the other program, it seemed like that OBS was potentially responding to things that it shouldn't be or intercepting traffic that it should have been. I'm not sure, so I'm curious about the behavior and of the OBS web server that runs when OBS is running, and I'm curious if that may be related to, or maybe perhaps it's something having to do with how I have it set up in my local environment. I don't know, but it is interesting. It does seem to interfere with my local traffic. So yeah, I see how ridiculously slow that is. If I turn off my open podcast right now, um, my internet speed and my VM is fine. It works great. I don't have any of this slow behavior. and it's not any type of overload to network bandwidth or processes in general, because I can be doing anything on the internet, downloading apps or watching multimedia or doing something, any intensive thing, and it works fine. It's really something I notice very specifically when I have OBS on, Open Broadcaster recording. So I want to go to my profile, but this is going so slow. It's a bit ridiculous here. Hopefully it picks up here a little bit. Yeah, once this loads here, we'll look for the format of some of these existing tweets that I have sent. I wonder if this is the same interference with my other browser. Let me just try this browser to see if it's any faster. Watch this be logged into the wrong account. Yeah, so you can see inside my virtual machine here. And again, this is only seems to happen when I have my open broadcaster, which is unfortunate because it's nice to be able to use this for streaming. There's not tons of options for streaming. Okay, well, at least we are getting some stuff loading now. So you can see we're doing some testing here of the auto tweeting service. And I've done a lot of various different retweets. But I need to go see how far back it is since I actually retweeted. Oh, come on. Couldn't be too far back, I wouldn't think. I think I'm getting close here. It's just this overall internet slowness here that is messing me up. This is like watching paint dry, huh? Come on, internet. Well, it seems like, watching this, I feel like, shouldn't there be a faster, easy way to do this? And the hard part is this normally is a very fast, easy way of doing it when things are working at a normal speed. And because I need to find if there's another alternative for live streaming. Here we go. So here's some of the ones I was looking for. So I put an at mention, put from Modern Apps Learning by at VMware Tanzu. So and then I could have, come on, this really slow internet here. It's killing me. Okay, so this is, let me say, from Modern Apps Learning by at VMware Tanzu. Okay. Why did it seem like everything shifted? I don't think it did. It was just new line. It looks like everything else is in the right line. Okay, from Modern Apps Learning by VMware Tanzu. Okay, so Let's copy that. And I'm going to hide my file explorer so I have a little more screen real estate here. And let's go say right here, I'm going to add that from line. And then the question is, do I want to add additional hashtags? I can go for like a character count here, but again, I could create a sample tweet with actual representative URLs here to determine the character count. But I think, what are we? It used to be 140, now it's 280. So we should be safe if I don't, but probably be good for me to actually do a character count on this to see. So let's just I'm going to open up Microsoft Word for the joy of easy character counting that it brings. Not that they're, using WC isn't great, but I don't have to think about what syntax to use right now. And in Word, it's just right click, so I don't have to remember anything. So first, I want to copy this tweet here. The interesting thing is you can see here the URL that has that it was used to create a preview. I did put that URL there, and I think when I manually created this tweet, I included the URL that I came back and edited or something. I think that's how I did it to keep it short and to make sure that this would pop up, because otherwise modernapps.ninja would pop up. So what I did is I tweeted it first with only the URL to the badge, and then I came back and edited it to correct to add the URL for modernapps.ninja, because I'd like to have the URL to the site there as well, or at least to the course. But that was what I did manually to get the badge to display correctly. So I'm just going to hope here that by hoping that if the first URL in the file is the one that goes to this nice badge display that validates that the user earned a badge at the badger site, then that will become the one that it chooses to display. But only one way to know for sure. So let's go ahead. So now we'll go back to our Microsoft Word. I'm going to paste this whole thing in here. And let's see. And I just want to let's just take. I want to go back and get a URL for a course. Let's just grab this URL is just a sample of how long that the course URL is going to be. So we'll go back into Word. And of course, it didn't copy and paste it right. Why would I count for not working right? Let's go courses. Let's grab one here. So here's a representative course URL. After I already screwed this up, let's see. So, delete that part and then paste. And I'm going to do 2 of those. So I'm going to see how long this is with kind of at the high end. Let's go review. Word count. Words 25, characters 294. See, I'm already over the character count of where I need to be here, even with that short message. So the big question is should I include the hashtags or not? And then there's also another question: does this go over 280 characters? And if so, in an ideal scenario, if we're doing this right, what we want to do is we want to control that if there is any possibility it goes over the character limit, we want to control that. Like I would ideally like to put a function in here that takes the entire tweet, text of the tweet, and truncates it at 280 characters or whatever the max is, so that way in the event that the variability ends up with this being long, we have absolute control over exactly what happens to the extra text. Where versus like hopefully if we accidentally send one that's too long to Twitter, they'll just truncate at the end of the message and that'll be it. But we don't know, and we don't want to leave something like that up to chance. So I think I'm going to include one hashtag, and we'll just do that one, the VMware Tanzu hashtag, or maybe to capture these are for promotion. So maybe VMware and VMware Tanzu. We'll try that and see how we're doing on character count with after we play with that a little bit. Ooh, I keep getting messages over in my Slack channel on my other window. Okay. Apologies for this. Just had a brief interruption in my other window here from my Slack messages. Need to make sure it's nothing important. Okay, so I think we're good with again this length, and we'll go back into. Okay. So here we are. We've got now. We want to put some these two hashtags, and then we'll put the close quotation, and that's it. And then we got to get rid of the erroneous lines here on the next two rows, and that should be. Hopefully, that will be do the trick for us. Now I'm gonna go back into my file explorer here, and one thing that's nice is sometimes like we see right now, I have this file here, request complete since it's open, and fortunately that's showing me in my file browser. But sometimes, what if I started to navigate to different repositories and I didn't remember which directory that this was in, right? If I hover over my actual open file here, VS Code shows the directory to make sure I know which directory I'm working within. And as you can see here, this is in a particular directory. Now my actual command prompt down here is set to a different directory because I navigated away. So before I can do git related commands on this directory, we want to go ahead and we can also copy here and copy the path here. So we can do that from the actual title handle right here, or from the file name in the Explorer over there. Either way, I'm just going to close the Explorer for now. Come on, Explorer, close. There we go. I'm going to change that directory. Everything is running really slow on my system right now. Maybe OBS is, I don't know. I don't know if it's OBS. It just seems to happen a lot more when OBS is running. I need to do some actual performance testing here. Okay. Oh, that's right. So that is one thing when you do copy the file, it copies the entire file name. So if you want to go to the directory, you can either look in Explorer to copy it at the directory level, or just delete out the file name to switch to the directory. Either way. Okay. So one thing noticed here that when I did that, I'm now in this. If you look down at the very bottom here, I am not just in my Modern Apps Skills course directory. I'm navigated inside the .github.workflows folder, and I actually want to be in the root directory in this case because I want to make sure I want to make sure I'm my entire Git repository is clean when I push this up. So first I'm going to do a Git remote to verify how I have my upstream set. So my origin is set to my fork, and my upstream is set to the appropriate upstream. Right. So now what I want to do is before I do anything, I want to add and commit everything I've modified locally. So I'm going to say git add dot. Okay. And then I should put a little better message in this, but for now, I'll just keep it simple. Instead of saying auto tweeting, because there's going to be a few places that we're going to auto tweet, I'm going to call this badge award auto. Let's call this service. It's not the best description, but it'll do for now. And then now that I've committed that, now I'm not just going to push this, right, because I want to do a rebase, but because I want to, I'm not 100, I think I pulled everything down and made sure that everything was fresh before I started. But in the event that there's been any changes to the upstream, I want to make sure that I synchronize my local copy with my upstream. So that way, when I push this up, everything will be nice and clean. So the first thing, when you know you have local changes, before you do anything with rebase, you commit any changes that you made locally. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to fetch our upstream. I'm working on the main branch right now. Now, again, it's not usually good practice to work on the main branch in general. However, if you're working on a fork, right, and your fork is dedicated to just you, at least personally, I feel like when you're working on a fork, you have some flexibility there because your fork really everything about your fork. If you're using your fork as to share as like I'm forking something so I can make my own version that I want to share myself, that's different than the use case where in this case, only purpose is my fork is making edits that will be separate and preserve the safety of the main site, and so well, it's probably a good practice anyways to go ahead and do branches on yours. I think there's more flexibility there when you're working on forks. So git fetch upstream. We'll just fetch all the upstream. And then I want to say git rebase. And before I do that, let me just show you if I say git branch, you can see here I am in my main branch. And so now I want to do git rebase upstream. And I don't know if it's strictly necessary to be this specific here, but I'm going to say upstream main. And this is what I say. I want to take the main um, branch of the upstream repository, and I want to merge that into the branch that my Git local environment is currently set to. You can see how I'm in my local context is set to the main branch. And so by rebasing the upstream main branch while I am set locally to be using my main branch, that's going to pull these updates into the local main branch. So as you can see, it rewinds the head to replay your work on top of it, and etc. So now once I do that, I should be safe to do a push. And this is not going to push to the upstream, right? This is going to push to my remote, which is my fork. So now we can go back into my fork. Let's go ahead and go into GitHub here. And I want to go into, this is course repo template. So I actually want to, come on, I just want to select just right here up to ModernApps Ninja. And then we'll look for the course repository template. And I could just go to afuel directly because I know that's where I've cloned it, where I have my fork running. But I have a lot of repositories in my fork. So for me, I usually just do it this way: find the course repository template, and once you can go to the upstream here, the main repository they want, and if you click on the fork button again, if you've already forked it, it's gonna put that right there. Look, I've already forked it, so that just gives me a nice shortcut to get back to my fork. And now let's see, this commit is 4 commits behind ModernApps Ninja main, which is interesting. Didn't I just do a push? If I did a rebase and I pushed it, and maybe I missed a step somewhere, but let's see, I merged And I rebase. Let's just try. If I do a commit, it shouldn't do anything at this point. Nothing to commit. Good. We already added everything, right? Let's try that again. Okay, well, let me just. That's bothering me why this is saying it's behind after I fetched and merged. Something didn't work the way that I wanted it to there, but we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it and run main. 4 commits behind, and I am in course repo template, right? Oh, shoot, no wonder. I'm looking at course repo template. I'm on Modern App Skills 101. I totally forgot because it's the manual tweeting service that we were looking at earlier. That one's on course repository template, but I put the automated one on the Modern App Skills 101 course. Because the course repo template doesn't have a functional testing service. So maybe more had to put it on a actual course here to test. So here we are as our Modern App Skills. So now I can go ahead and go to now I should be able, oh, interesting. I have a pull request open already. I wonder what this is. Okay, it looks like that. We'll just ignore that one right now because that's from a user. Probably it looks like a mistake. So I'll fix that one in a bit. And I'll go ahead and go to my fork. See here, fork. I've already forked. I'm going to go right to my fork. And this is exactly what I expected to see. This branch is 1 commit ahead of Modern Apps Ninja main because that when I rebase, that should pull the absolute latest down of what's on the upstream repo, and it should blend it together with any changes that I have locally and merge that together. And then there should just be 1 commit, and that should be a merged commit of the latest from the upstream plus the latest any updates that I had locally in that rebase. So we'll go ahead and contribute this. Okay, and that is going in the direction that I want. We'll create the pull request. Okay, and then since I am the admin on the Modern App Skills side, we'll go ahead and merge pull requests, confirm merge. Okay, so now the auto tweet service should be in place. So the next thing we need to do is test it. So I'm actually going to take a short break, and when I come back, we'll set this up. Now I don't want to end the live stream. It doesn't look like. Well, actually, you know what? Nobody is on right now. Again, I did not notify anybody that I was even doing this live stream. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop this for the time being rather than pausing it. I want to go ahead and I will get everything set up for test user, and then I will resume in a few minutes. Thank you. And I will, for anybody watching this in replay, I'll loop this into like a playlist so that way it'll play along in sequence. Thanks for joining.